Center. Welcome to Faith in Recovery with Anthony Acampora.
Welcome to Banyan's Faith in Recovery radio show. My name is Anthony Acampora. I'm your host. Blessed to be here. We have an incredible guest on today. Really excited about this guest, and also I want to tell you a little bit about our program. The Faith in Recovery program at Banyan Treatment Center is a faith-based, non-denominational, Christ-centered treatment program for substance abuse and mental health issues. So if you have anyone that you know that could benefit from this or is in need of this type of treatment, please give us a call at 888-270-5712, 888-270-5712, or if you have questions about addiction or about any of these different things that are going on, the opiate epidemic or things like that, or just red flags, things to look for when people are starting to struggle with this, feel free to call 201-538-2754, 201-538-2754. We also have a website called faithinrecovery.com. Feel free to go on there and check it out, faithinrecovery.com, or you could go on banyantreatmentcenter.com, banyantreatmentcenter.com. All right, so we're going to get right to it here. I want to introduce our guest. I am really excited about this. She's a great person, and Raeanne Hance is the Global Director of Corrections and Community Organizations at God Behind Bars Ministry. And she is a former regional executive director for state prisons in the southeast area. Welcome to the Faith in Recovery radio show, Raeanne Hance.
Well, thank you, Anthony. It is such an honor to be able to be working with you again. I know we've known each other a long time. We've done a little bit of work inside the prison and jails together, and it's really exciting to now be able to be here with you on this great radio show. And I'm excited and thrilled that I'm honored actually that you even asked us to be part of it. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And back in the day when I first got into ministry, I connected with Raeanne, and you actually connected me into some of the prison, South Florida Reception Center for one, down in Doral. And I used to go in and do Bible studies in that prison there. And boy, that was quite an experience. And with Chaplain Torrance, right? Was that his name?
Right.
Yeah.
They're still asking for you, actually. You made quite an impact.
Who, the inmates or the corrections officer? Okay. I wasn't going to say this. But it was true. When I used to go down there, the prisoners seemed nicer than some of the guards down there. I mean, it was just I got along better with them than with the guards. They would be like yelling at me and go over here and stand there and do this, and I'm like, man, I'm coming down here to try to help this situation. But anyway, no, most of them were good, but some of them, you're in that type of environment. I guess you would know better than anyone. For a long period of time, you start to get sometimes a little desensitized to things, and you always think somebody's. I guess it's kind of like that in law enforcement as well. You're thinking the worst of everyone. You always think somebody's trying to do something, and so the people that are actually trying to help sometimes get caught in the mix of that. But Raeanne, let me ask you this. I want to talk a little bit about your time in the state prisons, and then we're going to move into God Behind Bars. So tell us a little bit about your experience in the state prison system.
What I had found with the state prisons back when I was doing the state prisons, and now that I'm globally with God Behind Bars, it's more or less the same. I have found that when an inmate becomes incarcerated, he's sent almost 100, he or she is sent anywhere from 100 to 150 miles away from their family. Now, it's not that it's done on purpose to separate them. It's just, unfortunately, wherever there's an open bed, that's where an inmate gets sent. They go through the reception center that you worked in first, And that's a whole big thing because they have to go through mental evaluation, physical evaluation, and their education evaluation. And then they get sent to after they get through that program, they're immediately, once they're incarcerated, they go in the reception center, they don't even have contact with their family for 4 to 6 weeks. And then they get placed into a state institution, and they could be anywhere from 100 to 150 miles or more away from their family. Right. Only very few are even close. So with that comes a whole myriad of things that go on in them. They're physically being changed, they're mentally being changed, and they're emotionally being changed, and they have no support to the outside. So even if they didn't go in with mental illness, there's a certain amount of mental instability that happens through this whole process of reception and being transitioned into the state prison.
Right.
That's why volunteers are so important, and the chaplaincy programs are so important. Any programming inside the prison, but volunteers could be their only connection to the outside besides TV
right.
and radio.
Yeah,
if they don't have visitation with their families, that becomes a very sad, depressed time. So anything could happen.
Right.
And we all, and you know more than anyone what mental illness, the need of having some kind of stability, love, and knowing that even there's a Christ that loves you above everything else.
Amen. Amen. Well, I couldn't think of a worse place for somebody that's dealing with mental health disorders than prison. I mean, because it just doesn't, everything about it, just the security and the following all these compliances and rules and things like that. If somebody's struggling with anxiety or whatever type of psychiatric disorder, that's going to be really tough to comply with, and the guards will probably think, well, this guy's just playing me or playing a game here, and he's not trying to comply, and then it just kind of escalates, from there. Kind of like when they're out on the street, when you're suffering with some type of mental health disorder, it's usually a low-level crime, or you do something that, you get caught doing and whatever, and the next thing you know, you're sent off to here. But you touched on a couple of good points, and I want to talk about this article that I just was reading. It's from the Treatment Advocacy Center, and it says this. It reports that prisons and jails have become America's new asylums. 10 times more mentally ill people are now in jails and prisons than in state psychiatric hospitals. In 2012, approximately 356,000 inmates with severe mental illness were in prison or jail, while about 35,000 severely mentally ill patients were in state psychiatric hospitals. Now, I know that has a lot to do with the closing of so many psychiatric hospitals, and I think it was, people thought they were doing the right thing because some of the stuff that was going on in there and how they were being treated, but it really forced these people with severe mental illness out on the street, and then they get involved with some type of crime. The next thing you know, they're in this system. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, what have you seen with that, with the mental illness and things like that? How does that affect the how you run and how a prison, a corrections facility functions when you're almost like a hospital inside the prison?
Well, that is a great point that you brought up, because as you were speaking those statistics, what was going through my mind was the prison system is set up for security, to keep the officers safe, the inmates that are behind the razor wire safe, and the community on the outside safe. They are not set up to deal with any kind of mental illnesses. Now, yes, a lot of crime has come through mental illness, but once they closed all the state hospitals and so forth, they dumped them into the prison system. Well, now it has forced the prison system to learn about mental illness, because if you go into the medical, they may have 1 or 2 nurses or a doctor that comes in a couple of times a week. And so what they do is they distribute the medication?
Right.
Are they truly helping the source? No, they're not equipped to do so. They are now learning more about it, and they are trying to do things about it, but it's a very slow process because the whole prison system is wrapped around security first. So what happens is we're medicating these people. So what happens when they come out? If once they are released, if they are not released to where they are going to be monitored to make sure that they take their medication, they come out and they're what we call, they're off paper.
Right.
They're not on community control, they're not on parole, they're not on probation. So they're back out on the street. Well, we all know that if you have an issue of schizophrenia or something like that, when you're in the mode of being well-being, you don't think you need your medicine, so you don't take your medicine.
Right.
Nobody's monitoring you to take your medicine. You didn't have the psychological help. You don't know where to go for help when you're out. So it's just a repeat.
Yes.
You go off into whatever your mind is telling you to do at the time, and you wind up back in prison again. It becomes a terrible cycle, and it is a huge problem inside our facilities along with inside our communities.
Right.
So
Yes.
I don't know if there is an answer, truthfully, Anthony, but I can tell you that I go to all of the American Correctional Association conferences, and there's workshop after workshop after workshop how to deal with mental illness inside the prisons, plus the youth, the amount of youth that's coming in now.
Right. You know, it's such a difficult situation. It has to be so hard because with mental health disorders, it's not like you could really see it, right? So it's not that they have a broken arm or you take a blood test and you could tell what this person has or an x-ray. So I'm just thinking, like, from these corrections, I'm looking at just from when I used to go in there and volunteer and do these Bible studies, how they were like yelling at me and stuff. Imagine like they're telling people to do stuff, and these guys are inmates in there, and they're dealing with, you know, schizophrenia or some type of thing that they're totally like out of it maybe mentally, but they're not going to see that. They don't realize that, and there's just must be so many things that must happen, like miscommunications and just misunderstandings of thinking people are just not wanting to do what they're telling them to do. It's like I said, it's probably I couldn't think of a worse place to be if you're dealing with that is behind bars like that and that type of situation. We're going to need to take a quick break. We're going to be right back in 30 seconds. My name is Anthony Acampora, Banyan's Faith and Recovery Program. We have a great guest on today, Raeanne Hance from God Behind Bars. We'll be right back, 30 seconds.
Are you struggling with addiction or mental health disorders? Banyan Treatment Center's Faith and Recovery Program helps people at the depths of their despair, spreading the word that recovery is possible through the power of Christ.
Cry out to him. Where are you, God? Where are you? I don't feel you. Where's your presence? Why are you allowing this to happen? He already knows our thoughts anyway. We might as well just put it out there.
Program Director Anthony Acampora will help you discover how God can turn your mess into your message. Call Banyan Treatment Center for help now. 888-230-3122. Again, that's 888-230-3122.
Welcome back to Banyan's Faith and Recovery Radio Show. I'm your host, Anthony Acampora. We have a special guest on today, Raeanne Hance. She is just an amazing person, has such tremendous compassion, and has worked in the state prison system for many years, and now she heads up a ministry called God Behind Bars. So it's what a blessing how God does that. He uses our talents, but he also uses our pain and suffering, and then he uses our experience, and we just kind of go right into a different area there, but he uses all of those things. So welcome back, Raeanne. Thank you for being on the show. I just want to kind of finish off of what we were talking about. I was watching 60 Minutes, I think it was Sunday night, and they had this report on about the Netherlands and the prison systems in the Netherlands. And they were actually one of the worst there, and now they're actually the best. And they've closed, in the last few years, 19 prisons. They showed the prison. The guy walks in there. He goes, "I feel such a sense of peace in here." The reporter was saying they're walking around. It's quiet. They're playing volleyball. They're playing, basketball, different things, and everybody's seems to be. They're studying. They have access to the libraries. They say that they have these oak trees there, and they let them walk around out there. They have these huge fields. So, and then you compare that to our system, which really, if you look at it, it's not working. It's not working too well. And about, from this report, it says about 50% in the U.S. in the first 2 years go back into prison, and they end up committing more crimes. So it's just, in the Netherlands, it's fewer than 10%. That's why no one's in there, because they don't keep coming back. So it's just such a contrast. And I know what a lot of people will say, well, that's not punishment, and that person did this, and they need to suffer, and they need to just sit in a cell and rot and this and that. And the reality is the person's probably going to get out at some point, right? Unless it's just, a lifer and it's some horrendous crime. But they're probably going to get out. So what are we doing when they're in there to try to rehabilitate, to try to give them skills, so when they do get out, they could actually function in society rather than not having any skills, and the only thing they know is crime. And they probably get better at it in the prison, right? So what do you think about that, Raeanne? What do you think about, like, rehabilitation and programs, and do you think that'll ever happen in the U.S.?
I firmly believe in rehabilitation, and you're absolutely right. I do see the trend in the American across the USA as I'm attending these ACAs and speaking with the directors, commissioners, and secretaries of all the Department of Corrections. I am noticing and seeing that the trend is that they are caring very much about programs, about having them busy all the time. If they're not working, then they're in some kind of school, they're in some kind of modality, they're in some kind of program. And so I think they do want to release people that can come back and be productive citizens back in the United States. I think we are getting away from the warehousing. We have a long way to go because we have been so focused on warehousing and just keeping security and keeping society safe.
Right.
But I think now they're beginning to realize that because 33% returns every year, that we have to bring back productive citizens back into the community to help keep our community safe. It affects all of us. It keeps our insurance rates lower. We don't have to put bars on the windows of our fast food restaurants or our homes in high crime areas and so forth.
Right.
One of the great things, as you brought that up about the Netherlands, and I did see that show, there was a Warden Burl Kane, who was a very famous warden. He was at the Louisiana State Prison known as Angola.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Angola was one of the worst prisons in the United States. There was probably a murderer there every single day. Warden Kane went in there and turned that into the safest prison in the United States.
Amazing.
I sat with him, and one of the things he said to me was, Raeanne, if you treat a man like a man, you will have a gentle man.
Mm.
You treat a man like an animal, you are going to have an animal.
Right. Right.
And I always remembered that in the back of my mind. And when I go into the prison, I treat everyone with respect. I expect them to call me Miss Raeanne, and I call them Mr. So-and-so according, or Miss So-and-so according to what their name tag is. I always keep us on that equal, on that plan of respect,
right,
of higher. Because I don't want familiarity to grow where they can call me by my first name and I call them by their first name. There's too much manipulation that goes on.
Sure.
But we all know and we believe as followers of Christ and believing in the Lord Jesus Christ that if the heart is changed, the mind will change.
Amen. The
thinking will change.
Absolutely.
I believe that we need more and more and more religious programs, people to step up to the plate and volunteers to go in, to be on a high level of integrity, never get too familiar and just go in for the reason that we know that if you lift Christ higher, he will draw all men unto him.
Yes.
I believe that. I've seen it. I've seen it. I've seen people come out as productive citizens. I've seen them change. I've seen the heart change, the mind change. I've seen them want to stay on their medications because they know the facts that they don't. I've seen them struggle, but I've seen them come through it.
Right.
And I believe in it. So that's why I'm with God Behind Bars. That's one of the main reasons.
That's a great, well said, very well said, and great insight there. You know, when you have the faith aspect and you start talking about, you put Christ into the equation and things like that, and the Bible, and I know that's a big thing in the prisons, you know, you have a situation where everything about it is about redemption and restoration and second chances and forgiveness, and we're a new creation. So it just kind of lends to, hey, you could still, God could still use you. God still loves you. God wants to turn your mess into your message. All that type of stuff, and it provides hope for them, right? That type of thing. I just want to mention that Netherlands, just back to that real quick, and we're going to move on to God Behind Bars. But from 2005 to 2018 in the Netherlands, they had a 43% decrease in those incarcerated. 43% decrease. It's amazing. So let's go on to Raeanne. I want you to talk a little bit about how did you transition into this amazing, powerful ministry, God Behind Bars, and tell us a little bit about that and your programs with that and what goes on there for people that have no idea what that means, God Behind Bars.
I know that people, when you say it was a God thing, some people roll their eyes, but it was definitely a God thing. Mm-hmm. I was transitioning away from another large ministry, working in the state prisons over 7 states, and I was in that transition period, and I was doing a little bit of consulting work for the Department of Corrections when this ministry came across a deputy director's desk, and she just said, hey, would you do some research on this ministry? And the more research I did, the more excited I got, and was so thrilled to see, wow, that I believe in my heart they have something that's on the cutting edge, very innovative, and I just believed in my heart that God had their hand on this ministry. Through that, I got to meet the founder and CEO, Jake Bodine, and Dave Martin. It's a terrific, innovative ministry. It's a 3-phase ministry. We go in like an IMAX theater, high energy, high quality, and we move into family reconciliation, and then we move into small groups, betterment classes, and helping with the transition of pre-release and post-release. I fell in love with the ministry. I love the high impact where we partner with a mega church, and the mega church goes in and recognizes them as though they're a campus. It just connects them to the outside. It connects them to their family. We have an amazing tool for the family to attend church with their loved one in prison by going online to Church Inside. Wow. It helps them emotionally. It helps them with self-worth. It just connects them back to the community and gives them a sense of hope and knowing that there's people that truly love and care about them.
That's great.
That's why I fell in love with the ministry, and I so appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about God Behind Bars.
Absolutely.
They are an amazing, caring ministry.
Absolutely. Well, I've watched some of the videos and things that you've sent me over the years, and it is amazing. It is so powerful to see, you know, that camaraderie that develops, and that just the fellowship and the worship and the presence. You know, the Bible says he inhabits the praises of his people. When you have, doesn't matter where it is, you have that many people praising him, you're going to feel that presence. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful ministry, and thank you so much, Raeanne, for coming on the show. We really appreciate that. If you or someone you know is in need of treatment, please take that leap of faith. Go online, faithandrecovery.com or BannionTreatmentCenter.com. or you could call us at 888-270-5712. Thank you so much for joining us. Raeanne, thank you for coming on. God bless you and God bless the ministry. Psalm 147:3, he heals the brokenhearted and he binds up their wounds. God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.